A big thank you comes to you today from Dead Rabbit via Patreon for his long support of the channel. Kambal Profiteering Mayor versus Reese the Redeemed, Aurelia, and Kineos and Tyro. We've got ramp in the opening hand, which is usually what we want. No means of giving our opponents tokens, but I'll take the mana. Turn 1 Reese the Redeemed, as you would expect. More mana for us in the form of a Knight of the White Orchid up against a couple of green players, so should be able to trigger that. Get the Surveil land down on turn 1, and we'll have a look at what we're drawing into. And it's a Signing Blood on top. I'll keep that on top, might have to discard a card to that, but better to look at more cards. Reese swings in towards Aurelia, and we know we're drawing into that Signing Blood, so just arbitrarily get down the command tower. And instead of the Signing Blood, so we don't have to discard, we'll go for the Sword of the Animist. Don't normally like playing equipment when I'm not about to equip them straight away. Every chance they'll be removed, but Sword of the Animist tends to get left alone. Alright, and a 3 visits from Kineos and Tyro means that the Knight of the White Orchid is now going to be switched on, so we're not reliant on Reese making a land drop next turn. Although he does make a land drop straight away, and goes straight in for activating the commander for a token. So before anything, we draw into a Soaring Half, which is a fun card. Before making a land drop and doing anything else, we will go for Knight of the White Orchid, because this wants to see more lands in play from our opponents. And alright, I've forgotten to put Scrubland in the deck, weirdly. So we'll just have to shock down a Godless Shrine then. And then it's play a land for the turn, equip the creature up with the Sword of the Animist, and hopefully the 3/3 first striker next turn will be able to continue ramping for us. Ramming up for the 4-colour player with a fetch in the bin. And the first spell from Aurelia is a Metropolis Reformer, so maybe Angel Tribal. Reese making another token. And we draw into more removal and get lost, so yeah, drop a land. And have to crack this for a basic, unfortunately, so do have plenty of basics to go after in the deck. Don't think it's too likely that Sword of the Animist is going to strip our library of basics anyway, so it shouldn't matter. First off, go for more mana in the form of a Crowded Crypt, and then that can allow us into 3 mana for the Kambal, which should go very nicely against Reese the Redeemed. And we'll swing straight down the middle at Aurelia, taking the 3/3 first strike against the 2/3 Angel. Trigger Sword of the Animist for another basic. We'll grab a Snow-Covered Plains. Arcane Signet for Kineos. And then into the commander, so we're going to draw a card at the end of the turn off that. Triggers at the end of the turn and draws us into a Claim Jumper, so yet another means of land ramping in white. The white Metropolis Angel, not being reactionary, goes in towards Reese. And then it was a From Beyond for Reese, which will make an Eldrazi spawn at the beginning of their turn. Yet more mana in a Sol Ring. We're not going to struggle for mana this game, are we? Might as well get that out straight away. And then we'll Signing Blood onto ourselves, going down to 34. For a land, so we'll make a land. Get yet another piece of removal as well. Need to be getting into a means of making tokens, really. So Knight of the White Orchid, go in with the 3/3 first strike against the 3 1-powered creatures. And Sword of the Animist. We'll grab a swamp just in case we get into Cabal Coffers at some point. We'll consistently get swamps with that from now on, I think. Chump blocking the Knight of the White Orchid. And we're not doing anything else this turn, so is it worth just having the Claim Jumper down as a 3/3 Vigilance? Might be better to be swinging in with a Vigilance creature that's got the sword equipped to it. Our opponents don't look like they're going to catch us up on lands anytime soon, so we'll just get that in as a body. Well, that's a good one, a Mind's Dilation. When an opponent casts their first spell of the turn, exile the top card and you can play it. And again, we're drawing with Kineos and Tyro. Ironically, gets us into a land. Okay, that adds credence to the fact this might be Angel Tribal. Aurelia, the Law Above. Means of making damage and drawing cards. And exiling off the top another 5-drop, Tajik, Blade of the Legion, will come into play under the Mind's Dilation player's control. And he'll actually be able to trigger the Tajik as well. Anyway, after the theft, the 2 angels swing into the left. So before more damage is done with that Mind's Dilation, we'll go for the Get Lost onto it now. And this will maximise the tokens we get as well, because we'll get a From Beyond token at the beginning of Reese's turn. We'll get map tokens from the Get Lost. So in response, our opponent goes for Path to Exile onto our commander so that we don't get these map tokens. Yeah, alright, fair enough. We'll just take that and get yet another basic out of the library. I'm glad I put plenty of basics in this deck. Alright, and then responding with a Heroic Intervention, weirdly. So thanks to Indestructible, their thing isn't going to get destroyed, they're not going to get the map tokens, so why bother getting rid of the commander? Can always do that at the end of Reese's turn if he doesn't wipe the board or use any of his own removal, so yeah, seemed like a strange path to me, but gets to keep his enchantment. So there we see From Beyond triggering and without our commander in play, thanks to the path. Alright, and there is a Divine Visitation, goes very well with the other enchantment, means he'll get an angel every turn. And the blue permanent is still in place, so see what they get this time. A Howling Moon will make wolf tokens. Alright, unfortunately just another land on top for us, so drawing into that this turn. So if we play our commander for 5, re-equip the sword for 2, we'll have 6 mana left over. So we can hold up interaction quite comfortably here. Move the sword over first. And then we'll swing the rabbit into the right because it's 4 toughness against 3 power. Ramp yet again with Sword of the Animist. We've got plenty of basics out with this so far, as is pretty typical with Sword of the Animist. And then we can go in for our commander, see what Mind's Dilation gets from us. Alright, just exiling another land thankfully, so clearing lands off the top with that. So now we're safe to go for Stroke of Midnight while this player is tapped out. We'll trigger the Howling Moon because of our second spell, gets them into a wolf, which will make the Targic more easy to turn into a 7/7 indestructible next turn. But that same enchantment will make us a wolf token instead of the human token that we would have got from the Stroke of Midnight. Either way, we were getting a token with our commander in play here. So they end up with a human and a wolf during our turn. Argument to be made for us doing that during their turn, but this maximises the amount of tokens we get potentially, and maybe they've got counter magic held up. A Fevered Visions now, draw pains, so each player draws an additional card at the end of the turn, then if they've got 4 or more it shocks them. Not whether your opponent has a Gaia's Cradle in play as well, not sure if I saw that previously. Alright, going straight through to combat, we'll put a buff on the wolf token, making it a 4/4. And as you would expect, Targic swings in at us, the wolf to the right, and the human token offering up the trade with something on the right as well. So Aurelia going to trigger, even though it's not attacking, it will draw a card because it sees 3 creatures attacking. And Targic gets +5/+5 and is already indestructible. So not looking to take 7 damage here, we'll chump with the knight. Damage is taken by Reese as well. And upon the death of our knight, the Crowded Crypt will get its first counter. And then we draw a card to Kineos and Tyro. Not going to put a land into play because I want to see more cards. Alright, that draws us into our first means of giving our opponents tokens. A Hunted Bone Brute. Can give away dog tokens with that, and obviously we'll get copies as well. Land tax for the Boros player who's not keeping up on lands too well. And then pointing a Rip Apart at the Fevered Visions is curious. I'd be more worried about the Divine Visitation personally, but got to keep the Group Hug player in check as well, I suppose. And with that being the second spell, it makes a wolf token for our opponent, meaning it makes a wolf token for us as well in tapped. And then some damage from the angels swinging in towards us. We'll just take the damage here. I'm thinking of going for Split in Half, or Saw in Half, onto the Aurelia, because we've got creatures where we can trigger that and draw cards now. And our opponents are going to be triggering it as well. Thanks to the wolf token, we'll have to do it on the Reese player's turn though. So in response to From Beyond, before we end up with an Eldrazi token, or actually it'll be an Angel token now, won't it, thanks to the other enchantment. We'll go for the Saw in Half onto Aurelia now, and that will make a couple of token copies for the Boros player and a couple for us as well. Unfortunately it's legendary, so we'll only keep the 1. Okay, but in response, the 4-colour player has a Sylvan Reclamation going after the Divine Visitation and our Crypt, which I'm not all that worried about. But it looks as though the Reese player has something to do in response, so hopefully it's not a case of making tokens. It is. That is a March of the Multitudes. X is 5 on that, so going to get 5 Angel tokens, which means we will get 5 Angel tokens, so... but getting the interaction out of Kineos and Tyro's hand, a Croson Grip onto the Divine Visitation, and Split Second means that we can't respond to that. So we're going to get a bunch of tapped soldier tokens here, which do have lifelink, but I'd rather have had the Aurelia for a means of some card draw, like I said. So the tokens enter under our control, we do drain our opponents for 1 again. And the Soaring Half, basically just going to debuff Aurelia here. And all that was done during the upkeep, so during the main phase, able to cast a second spell in Treats to Share, which just makes a food token. And that will make a wolf for the 4-colour player again, but we only trigger our commander once, unfortunately. Alright, so let's see if we can draw into something other than a land. Eleshnorn is pretty damn good. That'll near enough be a one-sided board wipe, and will be rewarded for debuffing the Aurelia down to a 2-2 as well. Gonna hold on to the Hunted Bone Brute, there's really no need to play it here. And if someone wipes the board, then we'll still have a means of making some more tokens. So just get down the Eleshnorn. And that lands successfully, so like I said, leaving only 3 creatures in play on our opponent's sides of the field, and there's no power at the moment to worry about. So I'm going to turn everything in sideways to the left. Trigger the Sword of the Animist again. How many basics do we have left? Still quite a few to go yet. Could go for swords onto their commander so that they've got 1 less blocker, but we're not getting them here anyway. So they make the blocks, going to lose the Raminap. And go down to 5. They've got the drain from our commander to worry about as well. And this way we do get to hold up Swords to Plowshare still and draw a card from the Kineos and Tyro, assuming there's no board wipe. So with 3 cards in hand, just go straight through to the end step and allows us to draw. And it's just another means of mana for us, which is par for the course this game. A Defy Death from Aurelia, so reanimating an Angel, putting 2+ counters on it adds credence to the idea that this might be Angel Tribal. So Aurelia's back in, up to a 4-4 thanks to the 2+ counters, does survive the Eleshnorn. And then swings in at us, doesn't have enough creatures to trigger the Aurelia, but I'm sure we will on our next turn. So From Beyond triggering on Reese's turn, gonna make an Eldrazi, and we get an Eldrazi of our own for the first time. Just wondering if we should expect a Cyclonic Rift from the 4-colour deck over there. Noteworthy there's a Hall of Heliod's Generosity for Reese as well. I'm not sure how they got it in the bin, but Riftstone Portal is in the bin as well, so able to tap all their lands for Celestia colours. Anyway, just cracking a food token. Mox Tantalite has been exiled as well. And then Hall of Heliod's Generosity went on to the Divine Visitation, putting that on top of the library, so we know what they're drawing into next turn. And see if we draw into a land here. Well, almost. It's a Talisman. So we'll go straight through to combat. I'll force the issue on Kineos and Tyro, because there might be a rift or a means of interacting with all these creatures that go in towards him. So we'll do overkill with the soldiers. They can go wide on Kineos and Tyro. And then let's swing the rest in at the Boros player. Apart from the Eldrazi Scion, that can go into the right. Managed to keep our Eleshnorn so far. That triggers our opponent's Aurelia and means that they can draw a card and bolt everyone, so that gets Kineos and Tyro down to 1. Just 3 basics left in the library. We may well strip the library of basics yet. Alright, but managing to get rid of the 4-colour player, taking them down to -11, like I said, a bit of overkill, but wasn't sure what they had in hand, so wanted to overextend a little bit there. So now we're safe to get down our rocks, and again we're just holding up the Swords to Plowshares mana. The commander in play now, Aurelia the war leader, but does have a big debuff from our legendary Praetor. So instead of allowing them to draw into more cards, because they can swing in with 3 creatures here, and we'll be swinging in with them as well, let's get rid of the Law above. Go Swords to Plowshares here, might be a bit aggressive, but the fewer cards drawn the better, because we are at risk of seeing a board wipe here. So takes our opponent back up to 17, and turns in with both, including one with 0 power. Just doing it for the fun of it, I imagine. So we are dealt 1 commander damage and then going through to the second attack phase. And that will make it 2 commander damage, but we are well above our starting life total. From Beyond triggers again, giving us another Eldrazi Spawn, which is actually reasonably relevant. It's a 3/3 when it enters now. Divine Visitation back into play. They drew into that this turn, as we saw previously. And then just tapping out and passing again, so not going too well for the Reese player, unfortunately. Okay, there's an Elspeth, Sun's Champion. I mean, we might as well play that, even though we're up against flyers. And I don't imagine our opponents have board wipes at this point, so might as well show you what we can do with the Hunted Bone Brute. Just have to hope our opponents don't top deck into a board wipe, because I don't know if we can take both of them out here. So we give Reese a couple of angel tokens in this instance, and that means that we end up getting a couple of angel tokens as well from Kambal. So we have to account for the Reformer here. They'll gain life with the power they block. So if we take all the soldiers into the left, and the Scions, that's 21 damage, -6 for the blocks, and then -3 for the life gained, is only 12 damage. So we have to take some more power in over there. So yeah, if we take our commander and a wolf, then it will be 2 4-power creatures blocked, and then they gain 4 life, going up to 19. And then they can take 21 from the tokens that we were originally swinging in with, all the 3-power creatures. That should be fine. And then the rest can go in at the right, and we'll just have to hope that Reese doesn't get into a board wipe here. Seeing as how we have overreached at this point. Sword of the Animist leaves us with only 2 basics left. Alright, and we do manage to knock out the Boros player there, thankfully. Didn't bother with any blocks, because we'd figured it out correctly. Only getting Reese down to 5 though, and there's no guarantee that there won't be a board wipe here. Plus on the Elspeth to make some soldier tokens as well. That will drain our opponent by 1 thanks to the commander. From Beyond triggers again on our opponent's turn, making another spawn for us. Then throwing down a 3 blind mice, so making 3 mice with that, which will be angels, so seeing the power of the Divine Visitation here. And then a second harvest, so coming back quite nicely, just a little bit too slow unfortunately. Fortunately for us we can go wide, otherwise we'd be facing down a scary army of angels. Couple of 2/2 flyers, ignoring Elspeth and swinging in straight at us. So Elesh Norn has really kept us in this one, I think. See if we can top deck into anything incredible. And that's about one of the best draws we could have got, I think. Yawgmoth with all this surplus creature token shenanigans and extra life to dump into it. We could easily refill our hand with that and remove creatures. Not going to waste my opponent's time though. We'll plus on the Elspeth to drain our opponent for 1. Taking him down to 2. And then swing in with everything. Apart from Elesh Norn, our commander. And we won't swing in with the rabbit either because it will trigger the Animist. And there we go, no blocks made, so getting our opponent down to -62. I do appreciate all of my opponents playing that out. That's been a really good game, I think, and got to see some cool stuff with the new Kambal. If you like the game, then be sure to consider donating on Patreon, like a couple of you do already. Link is in the description for that, along with the deck list for today's deck. Hopefully see you in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.